I'm Jess.
And I'm Karli. And this is the Only Human podcast.
I could just feel that I was so out of alignment with myself and my values. I felt so empty. I started to feel like a shell of myself. That was so debilitating for me, that fear of putting myself out there and just the fear of letting people in. We have our emotional support water bottles. We do. Now we got the giggles.
We both made videos recently about body image and how we're struggling with it. And even though it really wasn't in the plans to talk about it, I think everybody can relate, especially around this time of year when there's so much pressure put on your appearance heading into summer. And so, yeah, I think this is needed for us and for everyone else.
Yeah, for us. This is going to be one of those cathartic episodes for both of us, I think. But it's also funny because this goes into, like we said before, your natural ability and want to share. And I'm an undersharer. So this is going to be good for both of us.
Yeah. You also shared with me that body image isn't really something that you're used to talking about. And I think with me, I've always been extremely passionate about it because it's something I've always battled with, especially having a background with running. I think it was always very prevalent in that sport. And so when I was writing blogs, back in the day, I was writing them about body image, and it's always been something I feel really passionate about. But I recognize that it's not an easy topic to dive into. So thanks for letting me strong arm you into this.
Oh my gosh,
episode.
Of course, not at all. I feel like it just goes into the whole premise of this podcast of just being vulnerable, and I'm happy to share. It just doesn't feel super natural to me. That's all.
Yeah, hence we have our emotional support water bottles standing by, nice and ready.
These things have been through a lot. I feel like just talking about society and body image and why do we even have issues with our body image is a great place to start. And I think that in itself could be a whole episode, but I think so many messages from women that we watch growing up, just TV and social media, there's just so many aspects to it. Do you feel like there was anything specifically in your life that growing up really affected the way that you felt about your body?
Growing up, I feel personally, I didn't really battle too much with body image. I don't think it was until I got a little bit older. And I think that was also when social media became a thing. And I think throughout all of time, different bodies have trended throughout the years. And so now I feel we're in the age of super, super stick thin again. But back in the day, it wasn't always like that. But growing up, I think I put pressure on myself to look a certain way, but it was more so around athletics. So specifically when it came to running and basketball, I wanted to have that lean, muscular physique, but it was more performance based. And then of course, with the whole wave of social media, then I fell into the trap of comparison. And when I got to college, everybody was super, small, especially with distance running. It's very prevalent. So I feel those were the factors that kind of affected me particularly, but I'm curious if that was different for you, just knowing that, you have your own unique perspective and story with it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting. I also feel when I was trying to think about it, I don't recall having issues until I got into my teen years, probably 12 to 13, that middle school range. My brain does do this thing where if I don't want to remember something, it will put it in a box very far away and I won't remember it. It takes a lot to go back and open that box up. So I don't specifically remember that I had issues around body image growing up until my teen years. And I just remember when I think about that time, I think about going into Victoria's Secret to get your body mist or your fold over leggings, flare pants. And you would just see this entire wall of TVs with the angels. And it's just right in front of your face. And this as a young teenager, that's just what you idolize and want to look like. So I don't think that like you, I, always had this idea of what I wanted to look like and what my body should look like. But throughout the years, there's definitely been a lot of things that have impacted how I feel right now.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch the Victoria's Secret fashion show growing up?
No, I did
Oh my gosh. I remember that was what I waited for all year long. I would get down, sit down, watch on the couch and stay up late and I absolutely loved it. But yeah, it absolutely sets like unrealistic body standards. And I think that's just amplified when you have access to something like social media, where you are now like able to look at the body types of millions of people. And typically the people that are like putting themselves out there are those that like want to be seen. And I just feel like diet culture is just like such a prevalent thing now, but it's more damaging than it is helpful. And I don't know, I just worry about, especially like young people that are growing up, not knowing anything different. Like, I think it hit us later, probably because that was when like the boom of social media really happened.
Yeah.
But we probably would have experienced body image issues a little bit sooner had we grown up with TikTok, Instagram, and comparison culture.
Yeah, that's such an interesting perspective. I never thought about it like that. I always think it's so cool how mine and your age groups, we kind of had a little bit of both. Like, we grew up very innocently, riding bikes and being outside. And then we also, when we got a little bit older, had the side of social media. So we kind of got to see life with both. But yeah, those ages that have only known that and have only known to be able to compare themselves to infinite amount of people, that I'm sure that has an effect. And not to mention, like, with social media, that's one thing, but then there's also this ability to Photoshop things.
Oh my God.
Which also is really difficult when you're struggling, and then this isn't even really what people look like in real life.
I feel like I'm so trusting that I would love to believe, like, I'm so naive because I'm like, people don't actually Photoshop, especially nowadays where like the raw footage and like the behind the scenes and just like messy Instagram pictures are like what is trending. It's like the non-aesthetic aesthetic, if that makes sense. And I feel naive to believe that like people aren't photoshopping, because they absolutely are.
Totally. Yeah.
But I just like, that's not a fact in the back of my head. So when I'm scrolling through social media, I'm not saying like, oh, this isn't realistic. I'm like, oh, this is actually what everybody looks like all the time. It's not them posing and taking 50 pictures and then posting like their absolute favorite one when they're like, you know, just posed just right and the lighting is hitting just right. Like, I'm like, oh, surely they walk around like this all the time. So I'm comparing their picture perfect to me 24/7, just like standing unfiltered in front of my mirror. And it's just not a apples to apples comparison.
Yeah. And I think there is a space of social media where people are starting to share those things. They're posting that really cute photo, but then they're also showing the photo that they didn't post. And I love that trend. Those.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's the same person. Like, the pose or whatever they did in that first picture is so drastically different. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe, like, there's probably so many people that maybe we've never met in real life that we think look a certain way, and they absolutely do not.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, it's tough because it's like, okay, great, you can post that, like, and I would post that good picture too, but it's on us to be able to not take that to heart and not compare ourselves. You know?
Right. Like, I get why people are putting those pictures out. I do the same thing, but it's, the onus is on the individual to kind of like ensure that, you know, that's not a fair comparison.
Right.
And yes, that person looks great, but it doesn't mean that they look like that all the time. And if they do, that is great. But like, you also have to come to a point in life where you accept your body for what it is. I feel like that's where I'm at, and we'll probably get a little bit more into that in a little bit. But I think you go through life and ultimately you just have to learn eventually that your body is the least interesting thing about you. And if you are finding yourself compromising your sanity, your mental health, your relationships, your quality of life, it's time to look in the mirror. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is to be able to like see your body change. But I almost think it's a part of growing up mentally and physically, that you can't always like just aim to be the smallest version of yourself. It's not sustainable and it's not realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I've learned too is that my body will absolutely never look like maybe the body that I want it to look like, just because I'm not built that way. And I say that because I think back to those middle school days, and I think when I started thinking about my body image and my body type, it was when I felt like very big in comparison to people. And I never, you know, said that I was fat or called myself fat or anything, but I just felt bigger. Although I'm only 5'4", in middle school, I was like the tallest one of anybody. I just wanted to be this like thin framed, tiny little like petite person like my friends were. And I just felt like so large and just like in frame compared to everyone else. And so I like naturally have bigger hips, and I like literally will never look like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's like a takeaway too, is that although there are different body types that we aspire to be like, our body will never look like someone else's.
Well, that's why I can't stand when these like fitness influencers are like, get a 6-pack in 60 days, or like, this is my Pilates body. And like, I'm a Pilates instructor, but like, I don't really look like a Pilates instructor. Like, people used to be like, oh, you're a distance runner? Like, I would have thought you were a sprinter. And I'm like, thanks. I'm not really sure like how to take that. But like, people promise results when in reality, they get the results because that is their natural body. It's in their genetics. And sure, they probably have a little bit more of like lean muscle, but at the end of the day, like we could be doing the same exact thing and we're still going to look different just because you're Jess and I'm Karli. And that's always the way that it's going to be.
Yeah. And that's something that I think once we can come to terms with that, will make life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Just at least speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like have a reason, or can you pinpoint why you are struggling particularly with body image this week? Do you feel like it's more this week than it has been in weeks past? And like, I'm just curious if you know like what's behind that.
Yeah. So I would say within the last probably like 5 months, I've been struggling more than I ever have in my life. And it's just because I have put on 10 pounds pretty quickly, and I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life. So I feel like for the last at least 10 years, I've been the same size. I've fit in the same clothes the same way. And I've been very consistent in my weight fluctuation. Like 3 pounds here and there is just usually my norm. And so I'm really feeling it in my clothes, in the way that I look in the mirror. And so it's just like not sitting well with me, because for 10 plus years, I've felt the same way and I've looked the same way and I've fit in clothes the same way. And now I'm not anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's just like a really hard pill to swallow for me. And so I'm doing things to try to get myself back to a spot where I want to be. But I'm just like overnight results. Like I want to be back to where I was tomorrow. And it's just like, I'm beating myself up over it.
Yeah, it's so hard because I'm on like both sides of the fence. Like I feel like I have not given myself grace for so many years. So even in your TikTok, like you say, like I'm actively like trying to take measures into my own hands to get like my body back. And that's like, quite frankly, a little bit triggering for me, because I'm like, you are absolutely perfect the way you are. But there's such a fine line between like taking accountability and taking the steps to get to where you want to be, but also using like language that's like gracious and soft with where you're at. And I do think you're doing that. I think the fact that I'm a little bit triggered, that's reflective of me and my struggles with body image. That has nothing to do with you. But I think just because I've struggled with it for so long and I've kind of like had to practice acceptance, just hearing somebody say like, I'm trying everything to like lose weight. And I'm not saying you're like trying everything and being like so dramatic about it, but just like acknowledging that like that's a goal for you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes like makes me want to just like shake you, like you're perfect the way you are. But again, that's because deep down, like I've told my message that to myself, that's my message to myself. But yeah, I can totally relate to like your body changing, especially as you get older and like your clothes that you've always worn aren't fitting the same or feeling the same. And I think that's usually like the first sign. And even though other people can't tell, I think it's like a constant reminder to you, because even if you're sitting, like your jeans are like always like digging into your waist. And I'm like, nobody else knows how uncomfortable I am, but I'm sitting at this restaurant trying to eat dinner and I feel like I need to unbutton my pants just to, like be comfortable. And similar to you, I am the heaviest that I've been in a while, but that was by design because my body was absolutely rebelling against me for a really long time and I ignored it. So I feel like I tried to control my weight for a really long time throughout running, because usually people, you know, say the smaller you are, the easier it is to haul your ass around the track. It's just physics. And so for a really long time throughout high school and college, I tried to just shrink myself to be successful because that's what I thought it took to be fast. And I didn't have a cycle for a really long time. And even after I graduated and even after I stopped running, I stopped doing high intensity. I started, taking up Pilates and walking, and still nothing. And so that's when I had to like look in the mirror and look at like my habits. And I was still trying to control my weight through food, even if I was kind of being a little bit more gracious on my body through exercise. And I kept being like so confused of like, what's wrong with me? Like, why aren't I getting a cycle? Do I have PCOS? And it's funny how sometimes you can be so self-aware, but still be missing the most obvious part of the puzzle. And that's what happened to me. And so about almost a year, so I guess it's like 8 months, it's in September of 2024 is when I decided that I need to just do everything I need to do to get my cycle back. And I ultimately did get my cycle back in 8 weeks, but I've had to like consistently eat more calories, more carbs, and just accept that my body is changing, but it's functioning. And like, that's all I can ask for. And so I feel like that's also kind of something that I've learned as I've gotten older is being skinny is not my most like highest priority anymore. Being able to have a family one day is, but it doesn't make the process any easier. Like two things can be true at once. Like I can know that, but I can also struggle every single day when I look in the mirror. And that's where I'm at right now. And I think why I've been struggling with body image really this week is because it's the start of summer this weekend. And I just feel like there's a lot of pressure to be in like the best shape of your life when you're going to be on the beach in a bathing suit, wearing like short shorts and sleeveless shirts. And I'm so excited for all of like the fun that summer brings, but I can't lie. Like I want to crawl out of my skin when I think about being on the beach so soon. And I hate that feeling more than anything.
And it only makes sense because in a bathing suit, theoretically, like you are exposing every part of yourself. And so if you don't feel good about that, like doing that act of being in a bathing suit is just going to feel worse. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely makes sense. And I'm right there with you. I think it's super interesting that we both have different reasonings behind why we're feeling kind of crummy right now. But we both are feeling the same way. And I think it's just, I'm learning that it's super important the way that we talk to ourselves when we're feeling like that. And I think one of the things that I'm doing right now is, like I said, I'm trying to do things that are within my control, and I am actively doing them, but I'm still beating myself up over where I'm at instead of encouraging myself and being like, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a good job. You're doing everything that you can control. So that's like the part where I'm struggling right now. I'm already like, I'm beating myself up about being where I'm at, but then also the fact that like I'm not back to where I want to be tomorrow.
Right. That's something that always has helped me is recognizing that where you're at today doesn't dictate where you're going to be tomorrow or a month from now. Like I think I have a really hard time when I look at things and think they're permanent or forever going to be the case. Specifically with body image, like right now I know that my utmost priority is just making sure I'm healthy and I have functioning hormones. And one day, maybe I'll be able to, prioritize high intensity workouts or like losing weight. That's not today. And so I feel like it can kind of relate to you because it's okay that you're not where you want to be today, but that's not always where you're going to be. And I think when you try to like rush the process too, that's when you start putting pressure on yourself and feeling like you're not doing enough or you need like a quick fix. When in reality, like that's any change that's worth making is going to be sustainable and done right over time. That's how like healthy, maintainable progress comes. But you said that you're doing everything that you can control, but I think it's interesting because there's a lot of things we can't control. And even the way that you talk to yourself is one thing, but I'm just thinking like the way that I hear others talk about themselves sometimes is really triggering to me. Even in like my like friend group chat, they'll be like, and they're totally like kidding. Like they're totally joking. They don't mean this half the time, but they'll say really triggering things like, oh, I just ate a whole thing of pizza. I'm not eating for a week. Or like, and they don't actually do that, but like they beat themselves up. And sometimes I think as humans, we feel the need to like acknowledge that we're uncomfortable or tell people that we're uncomfortable for like validation, or maybe because if we then see that person, we don't judge them because we already know they're judging themselves. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I'll put it in context. Like if I'm feeling like bloated or overweight and I'm about to be on the beach with somebody in an hour, I might text in the group and be like, oh my God, I'm having the worst day. I literally look like shit, because I want to be the first one to say it, because I don't want them to see me and them thinking in their head. I want to be like, no, I'm aware. Trust me. If you're thinking it in your head, imagine what I'm thinking in mine.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible habit, to feel like we have to always like call out the elephant in the room by like being so harsh on ourselves. Like, what if I just didn't say anything at all and just battled in silence? And part of me feels like that's why I felt so called to talk about this. Like, is it because I want people to know that I'm aware I don't look the best I have? Like, is it selfish? And I don't know. Like, I'm actually literally processing this in real time with you right now. But I just think it's interesting how there's so many factors that can determine like how we feel and the thoughts that cross our mind. And it's not always just internal, it's our surroundings as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And we were talking a little bit about this before, but what is helpful for you when you say that you're feeling like that to someone else? What is helpful for them to say back to you? Because I think we have different answers to this question.
Yeah, I think sometimes them just trying to get me out of my head and just be like, you look great. You are being extremely hard on yourself, but you shouldn't be. And I disagree with you. But what is your answer to that? Like, how can somebody respond to you when you're having a bad body image day and you say a negative comment about your body out loud?
I think I just want somebody to say, like, I'm sorry you feel like that. Like, almost just like, I hear you. And like, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with you and giving my opinion. I'm just like, I hear you that like you're feeling like that. Because I find that when I rarely mention anything about my image, even if I'm feeling that way, because I don't want that response of like, oh my God, but you look so good. Because I just feel like when people say that to me, I don't feel heard, you know? Like, I don't feel validated, and like, I just feel like I'm just crazy. Like, I just feel like that, but no one else thinks, like, I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Because it's almost like you feel like that either way. So like by somebody saying, oh, I don't think that, you're like, but I do. And that's what matters.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I feel like and it just goes to show how different people need different things. And I feel like that's also important to communicate to those around you. So for example, like your husband, and like, I'm sure this has been a scenario that's played out a time or two. Does he know how to support you on weeks like this when you're having bad body image days?
Yeah, totally. And he still will give his opinion, like, gracefully.
As a husband, how can you be like, I'm sorry you feel that way?
With you, right. But I'm like, sometimes, like, if I'm telling you that I feel so bloated and you're telling me that like I look great, I'm like, please tell me I'm not crazy. Like, I just would rather you agree with me so that I feel like.
What if somebody genuinely doesn't agree? Like, if you're like, I'm so bloated, and they look at you and you're like, you're not though.
I don't know. I feel like I would want them to be like, I'm sorry you feel like that, like from your point of view, but from my point of view, like, you really look fine. Like, I don't know. It's just like the dismissive, like, oh my God, but you're so skinny. Like, you look so great, whatever. You know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know. I think it's okay if you say that. Like, I don't want to say like, no one tell me that I'm skinny and I look great, but it's just the fact that like, I want to know that you like heard me and are like validating what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like that's the first step, at least for me, to be able to like be kinder to myself, is like to have my feelings validated.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. That's very important. Do you find that like is also extrapolated across other topics as well? Like, not just body image, like you just like to like feel validated in like your emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that could be like a whole nother podcast episode. And like, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, but I do feel like I have a hard time validating my own feelings. Like, I need someone else to like agree with me. And like, you know, as we talked about in a previous episode about how I had such a hard time starting the podcast, but when someone like repeated back to me how passionate I was like, yeah, you're right, I am. Like, it's almost easier for me to take it from someone else and their perspective of what they see than what I feel in my own heart.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, this could probably be a whole episode itself, but
it could.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Has somebody ever made a comment that didn't mean to be like super negative, but that has stuck with you, or like any specific experience, like you mentioned when you were a child and like comparing yourself to your peers, do you feel like all of the pressure and like the experiences that you've had with negative body image has been internal, or has it ever been like externally placed upon you?
That's a great question. I think it's all internal.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever had an experience that I've stuck onto and like remembered that, that like made me feel that way.
Yeah.
I think it's just the comparison culture
Yeah.
that is embedded. Yeah.
It's so interesting because it sounds like neither one of us have dealt with like an upbringing with like parents, but I do know like there is a world where people grow up with parents that are very hard on them physically, and whether like the parents are projecting or something, but that's just like an added layer of pressure.
Totally.
And like growing up around people that are always like monitoring what you eat or making comments on your weight or the amount that you eat, like I think that can be extremely damaging over time.
Yeah. I think it really helped, and probably for you too, that I was super active growing up. I feel like kind of tying into that, when I was around my middle school, like teenage age, I stopped playing. I used to play 3 sports and I just stuck with ice hockey. So I was like doing soccer, softball, track.
I love that you played ice hockey, by the way.
So funny.
I love it.
So I was like playing all of like soccer and like track. I was like staying super skinny and thin, but then I dropped all of those just to focus on hockey. And so I got like thick hockey legs. And like, to say thick, like I'm probably being a little dramatic, but like as a hockey player, you just have those hockey legs. Like you're using so many muscles in your thighs and your legs. So that's when I started to feel like I had a change in the way that I saw myself and like comparing myself. And I also felt like that was when I started having difficulty fitting into clothes because I have like a smaller waist compared to my hips and my legs. So like finding jeans and pants is like the biggest uphill battle for me. So I think that also like doesn't feel good when you can't just be like, oh, I'm a medium, and just like buy a pair of pants.
Which I'm not invalidating your feelings, but that is a great problem to have. Be like, I had a slim waist and a big butt. But I understand how frustrating that could be. Was there any like culture with the other girls in the ice hockey team? Like, did anybody ever bring up like similar feelings? Did you guys ever like talk about it?
I don't think so. I don't think we ever really talked about that. Honestly.
Yeah. Well, you guys were also very young, so I feel like that wasn't probably like a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Like with track, it was very prevalent.
Yes. And I think with ice hockey, like you're very rarely with your teammates and with no equipment on. So you're almost kind of hidden underneath of your equipment. Like everyone looks like a big like load with all of their pads and everything on. So I don't know that that was ever like a conversation. I think there was like a lot more teenage things that we talked about other than how we felt under our equipment.
Yeah. Which should absolutely be the case.
Yeah, which is definitely good. But it's also nice to, like this podcast is about, just talk about it, to feel like, oh, I'm not the only one that's feeling this way.
Yeah, absolutely not. I feel like body image issues don't discriminate. Like I think we also like talk about it as if it only plagues females, but a lot of males also struggle with body image too. But I feel like they just can't talk about it, or if they do, it's in like a joking manner, like, oh, it's bulking season, or like, whatever. But I feel like it doesn't discriminate against age, gender, like everybody, literally everybody struggles. And that's why I feel like it's such an important topic, and one that I've like held close, specifically because, like I said, I've struggled for years, and it was like really intertwined with my identity for a really long time, because I felt like my size determined my success at my craft. And while I had a great upbringing and my parents never, ever, ever said anything about my weight, and they're both like very healthy. I think that's also important, not necessarily what your parents say, but how they model behavior. And we ate dinner together every single night. I was the kid who was eating ice cream for dessert every single night, like just very normal around food. But once I got to college and I started seeing everybody else being like very hard on themselves, and just acknowledging that that was a huge part of running culture was like dieting and being the smallest version. Like I once had a coach tell me that you're not running fast because your body composition has changed. So like, I don't really know why you're so confused that like you're not really hitting your times. And it wasn't with malicious intent.
Wow.
But I remember that day I went home and I like ate frozen vegetables for the next like 3 days. And like I was on a run in West Philly and I started like, my head started spinning. I like tripped on a curb because I like literally had no fuel in my body. It was like my second run of the day because it was like a double day. And I remember just calling my dad and just like hysterical crying. But like, that's a comment that's stuck with me. Clearly, I haven't talked about it. I'm like getting emotional about it.
Yeah. That's so crazy that a person in an adult mind, number one, because, you know, once your frontal lobe develops a little bit more than us as teenagers, I think you should have a little bit more of mindfulness around those things. But I can't believe someone in a position of like power and a role model to you would say that. That's hurtful. It was supposed to be factual, I guess, but it still doesn't make it, I don't know, any more of an okay comment.
Yeah. It definitely like, and that's the things, words are words, but they also have the ability to like catapult into actions. Similarly, like how I just said, like after that comment, I went and I ate frozen vegetables for the next like 2 or 3 days, as long as I could sustain. And they're just so damaging. And I feel like throughout college, I did a lot of things to try to control my physique. And I feel like I would go in these like periods of like binge and restrict cycles, like around my competition schedule. And I was a distance runner. So we were 3 sport athletes. We were in season all year long. And so I feel like the weekends I would like go balls to the wall and just like eat whatever I wanted. And then like would try all week to like lose like 3 to 5 pounds before my meet. And then I would do it all over again. And I remember that comment came after winter break. I had been home and finally I got a little break from the season. It was like between cross country and indoor, or maybe like indoor and I forget, but we weren't in competition mode. And that was like such a reprieve. I just remember being able to like exhale, and I overate that. Like I was like stuffing myself. And I feel like it's really taken me a long time to find a good relationship with food and exercise. And I know this is kind of like a separate topic to body image, but I think it's a critical input. And because of my toxic thoughts and the comments that were made in my environments, I feel like that really prompted me to act in certain ways and engage in certain behaviors like binging and restricting. And it took me a while to unlearn those behaviors. And I think this whole like hormone healing journey with regaining my cycle has really helped, because it's given me a new perspective of I'm doing something good for my body and it doesn't look like making it the smallest version. Like I'm doing something that's healthy for my body. And in fact, that looks like a little bit of a bigger body for the time being. And like, I have to be okay with that. But I don't know. I have a lot of sympathy for people that battle with body image, because I know it's not just a mental health problem. Like it can also lead to some very like disordered behaviors as well. And that's like not lost on me. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about more.
Yeah. Do you feel like your body image has ever held you back from doing anything, or like how does it show up in your day-to-day life?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say it's held me back from doing anything massive. I'll say like, if there's a day that I am not feeling great and it's a beautiful beach day, like I will probably still go, but it might prevent me from like taking my cover up off, which I feel like everybody can relate. I will say when I started teaching Pilates a couple years ago, I found this like new pressure to look like a Pilates instructor, which as I referenced earlier, like I don't think I look like your traditional Pilates instructor. And so that's hard sometimes. Like when I think about this summer teaching classes, like I love doing that. I'm so excited, but I also really struggle to stand in front of a room full of girls who are coming to take a fitness class from me. And I'm scared that they're going to look at me and be like, interesting, I don't really want your body. So like, why would I want to take your class? And when I was teaching in the fall, like I struggled to find clothes that I was comfortable showing up in. So if anybody was taking my classes week after week, I had like the same set in like 5 different colors. Actually, this is the shirt of the set, and it's like these little like shorts, but I like couldn't wear a sports bra because I didn't want my stomach out, because my stomach now like looks different than it had before. And so like that's been a challenge. Again, I've made a point to not let it stop me from doing anything, but I would be lying if I said that when I'm going to a class, I have to like talk myself up and just really be gracious and just be like, if I accept myself, other people will hopefully accept me, and I can't control their thoughts. All I can do is control what I can control. And that's like the class that I teach. But Pilates has been like a newfound pressure.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think there are going to be so many times in our lives where we're going to have those new pressures, and like having a good backbone for being able to navigate those is like super important. So it sounds like we're both kind of trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm curious because I feel like wedding body is a huge thing, and you got married last summer almost, right? Your anniversary is coming up. Did you feel any type of way leading up to your wedding to like wedge dread or no? That's amazing.
Like I said, like the past, so thankfully this weight gain was after my wedding. So like before that, I wasn't like working out more or anything. Like I was just doing my thing, because up until then my body had just been stayed the same no matter what I did. Like I didn't really fluctuate in my exercise or my eating habits. Like everything was just the same for a very long time. And so I felt like comfortable where I was at, and I didn't feel like I had to like fit into my wedding dress or, you know.
But it sounds like that was more of a byproduct because you were happy with where you were at, and less so because it was like a worry in your mind. Like if you were getting married this summer, knowing how you feel now, like do you think you would have felt pressure? Because I feel like there's this like, you know, this premise that everybody should look the best on their wedding day, and it's too much.
Yeah,
Like,
it is. There's so many other things, like more important things to be stressed about than like how you look on your wedding day.
I think a lot of brides would disagree with that, which is,
I know.
like, I think that's a fresh, unique perspective. Yes. But I think brides would venture to say, like, I don't care how the flowers look. Like, if it's me or the flowers, like, I'm choosing me.
So I guess I don't mean like within a wedding. I think just like, how's your relationship with your like soon to be husband? How are you guys handling this like upcoming milestone together? Like those are the things that I feel like are more important to stress about than like, I'm going to get a size down on my wedding dress and then I'm going to be able to fit into it.
I love that. Like, are you marrying your soulmate? Are you marrying the person
the person that I should be marrying?
Yes. Yeah. I love that. It almost like kind of ties into the comment I made earlier about like your body is the least interesting thing about you. On your wedding day, your body is the least interesting thing about that day. Like it's more about the union and like the person that you're committing to for life. I love that perspective, and I've never really heard anybody else say it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps that I was like very secure in my relationship and like have a very healthy relationship. So from that, I think I was able to like prioritize the things that I feel like should be a priority, and you know, being a certain weight or looking a certain way on my wedding day was like not one of those things.
That's also such an interesting point, because I feel like people battle with body image regardless, but I would be so curious like to hear from your perspective, being in like a loving relationship, how it affects you versus somebody like me where I'm single and like, you know, actively dating or trying to date. And if there are like different pressures at play, knowing that you have your husband who thinks you're beautiful, like no matter what, you don't have to worry about like impressing people. Ultimately, you're like, I don't care. I'm married.
I mean, I think it's funny because what do they say? Do they say like you gain weight after you get married because you just like stop trying to impress?
Yeah. Or like if you're in a relationship, they say like, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like I almost take the relationship out of it whatsoever. Like I want to feel good and look good for me. And I don't feel pressure, whether that's to look good for other people or to look good for my husband. Like I feel like I just am very focused on like how I want to be for myself. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Oh, it does.
okay. I was gonna say that funnily enough, we started dating when I was 15 years old, which is like
blows my mind.
Literally insane to think about. But at that time I had been in a really bad spot with my body image, and after starting to date him, like he made me feel so much better and more secure. Like I legitimately remember like just feeling this whole new wave of confidence because he just like made such a fuss over me and just made me feel so good in my body. And I just felt how genuine he was. And like he like truly was so enamored by me. And that just like made me feel so good and so secure in myself. And I feel like that has carried on for 11 years now.
That's so
That
sweet.
like he really, really built me up like when I needed it. And then now I feel like I'm at the point where I am like taking my body image into my own hands.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it sounds like it's kind of like full circle that he, in the beginning, was kind of like the reassurance you needed, but now you truly believe it yourself. And you're like, I don't necessarily need my partner to like tell me, even going back to how he can show up for you when you're having a bad body image, you don't need the validation from him because it sounds like, you know, you have it all within you to like give yourself that grace and also to like get yourself to where you want to be through like certain actions.
Yeah. I mean, the validation definitely does help. But I don't feel like it's something that I need, which kind of like, I feel like is the opposite of what I said earlier. I don't know.
Well, it's not always black and white.
Yeah, it's really not. I'm just like, someday, I feel like every day is different.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Isn't it so funny how with body image, like we always say like, oh, I'm having a bad body image, a bad body image day or like week. And truly in my brain, some days when I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like, I gained 10 pounds since yesterday. Like, why does body image
So different.
work that way? It's like you have a grit, and it's like, I did not fluctuate that much from yesterday to today, but why do I feel like a whale today?
Yeah.
It makes no
I don't have an
sense.
answer for you, but I agree.
I kind of joke that having bad body image or like prioritizing your body image over everything else is like selfish and immature. But it kind of is to a certain extent. Because it's like, don't you want like this rich, fulfilling life that allows you to like go out to eat with your friends and like eat cake to celebrate your dad's birthday and take your kids to like Chuck E. Cheese if they want to go and eat a slice of pizza? Like, don't you want like an enriching life, which food is a big part of it? Like, you're just missing out on so much if you're so laser focused on the aesthetics. And I think that's something that I've had to like come to terms with and learn with age. But I think it's just like, what are your intrinsic values? And how does that like dictate how you like show up and prioritize different things in life?
Yeah, I think just thinking about how you were saying an enriching life, I'm thinking about how many times have you been out and you take a picture and look at the picture and hate how you look. I literally would be like, Aunt, is that how I look in real life? And he'll be like, no. And I'm like, I sure hope not. But it's so alarming because you can only see yourself in the mirror and in a photo. And like, if only we could just see ourselves from other people's point of view, because it's probably so different, but that will like ruin my night.
100%.
And like, why is that the case?
Yeah, I
or
hate
like,
pictures
if
for
I
that
feel
reason.
like my arm looks big, then I will like put my sweater back on, or like worry about like, oh, I'm not gonna have my arm like sit like that. Like, why is
Well,
the case?
when we recorded it the other day, like we got the footage back and I was looking at the videos and like the whole time I'm looking at my arm,
Me too.
my stomach, the way my face moves, like my double chin comes out when I laugh. And that's what I'm focused on instead of like the conversation that we're having and how excited I am that we're finally doing what we've been talking about doing. But yeah, it's really, really hard to escape from. And it takes conscious effort day in and day out to like push through those thoughts and make sure that it's not changing who you are or what you want to do. Back to your question of like, has it ever stopped me from doing anything? And like the reference to Pilates, like what a damn shame it would be to like let your body image stand in the way of you living the life that you like envision for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a great way to kind of wrap this conversation up. And although we're both still figuring out what works for us, what are some ways that on a bad body image day, it's such a tongue twister.
A bad body image day.
On a bad body image day, what are things that are helpful to you or like you're able to tell yourself to kind of quiet the noise?
I think the first thing I do just for my own comfort, I just put on baggy clothes. Like there's no need to be putting leggings on or
You
jeans.
just feel like everything so much more when you're in tight clothes.
Yes. Yeah. Like you, exactly. Like I don't need to feel like a stuffed sausage all day when I already feel like one. Like I'm all set, love. Like I'll put on my like baggy t-shirt. And, but other than that, I feel like I have to view food as fuel. And I have to remind myself, like, I think historically, if I was having a bad body image day, I would try to like push off breakfast for as long as I could, or like skimp on the carbs or cut a meal out. And now I think on those days, I make it an even greater point to eat 3 full meals. And while I'm sitting there eating, just being like super present about like, my body actually needs this. Like this is an essential, it's an essential part of how my body functions. And then just going back to like reminding myself that my body is the least interesting thing about me. And if I want to show up in the best way for those around me and like really live a fulfilling life, like I need to be healthy in order to do that. So it's there's a kind of cliche, but what about you?
Yeah. I think I'm still figuring this out, but really just trying to give myself grace and remind myself that, well, I'm going to steal that one from you, by the way. My body is the least interesting thing about me.
Do it.
But yeah, I feel like just reminding myself that I'm doing everything within my control and that it's really not that deep.
It's not that deep.
You
I
know?
love that. I love that too. I always tell myself that.
And like, although it feels deep, it's really not that deep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But still figuring it out, TBD.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of this podcast. We're not on here to tell people what to do or what not to do. Like we haven't figured it out yet. And hopefully people resonate with this conversation. Yeah. But just wrapping up with our closing segment of mental health resources that we're loving this week. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. These things can be anything. It can be a quote, a podcast, a comfort show, a habit that we're doing. And for me this week, it's therapy. Funnily enough, my therapist was on maternity leave. So I'm like really feeling glad to get back in the groove of things and just remembering how helpful it is.
I love that. Yeah. So you start your therapy sessions again. She's back now.
She's back.
Amazing. She's back.
Again, still don't, you're going to have to fill me in on the reference from last episode. I still don't know.
I never even told you
never
either.
told
I
me.
made the reference and I was like, forget about it.
She's a lost cause.
Lost cause. My mental health resource kind of on topic with body image is the influencer Victoria Garrick. I think that's her maiden name. She has since been married. I think her last name is Brown now. But she went to USC, I believe, and played volleyball there. And she has just taken off. And she's known for, posting about body image. And she does like the Instagram versus reality. And she has a TED Talk. And specifically when I ever feel myself like slipping into those negative thoughts about my body, I go to her page and she's just an amazing resource. So that's Victoria.
Awesome. Shout out.
Shout out.
Well, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully you can get a little bit of comfort and validation, knowing that if you're feeling this way too, you're not the only one.
Yeah, we got you. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.